Hey guys, welcome to Rationality, Reason, and Reality. I'm Supernova. Today, my topic's probably going to upset a lot of my listeners because I know you're probably an atheist and you're probably scientific. You like science, you believe science, and that's a good thing. Science is a branch of philosophy, a way for us to find knowledge, and it's a rather good way of finding knowledge that we keep increasing our ability to do over time. It just gets better and better. So I have nothing against science, but I do have something against the idea of scientific consensus. Now, this maybe has been around for a long time. Maybe people have talked about scientific consensus since before I was born, but it seems to me that it's a more recent thing that this becomes cited as evidence, as there are a lot of creationists out there who are evolution deniers, and we have a lot of Republicans who are global warming deniers. We have all these atheist skeptics, scientists citing scientific consensus, the fact that all kinds of scientists agree on a fact, as evidence. Don't do that. There are two good reasons for this. Number one, it's fallacious. I've discussed in a past video a lot of logical fallacies. One of them was appeal to authority, or argument from authority, where you judge an argument based on who it comes from, and that's fallacious. It's wrong to do. It doesn't matter if your next door neighbor and a scientist both say the speed of light is 340 meters per second, give or take. It's not relevant who it came from, because obviously they're both right. Your neighbor isn't wrong just because he's not an expert. He probably cited the same source that the scientist did. Probably looked it up online, which is drawing from scientific evidence, experiments done in order to find that. It doesn't. The expert may recall it better, but it's not true simply because he says it. And if the expert and your next door neighbor both think it's 3,400 meters per second because they misremembered it, or something of that nature, it doesn't become true simply because the scientists say it. It's the evidence that counts. The person presenting it is irrelevant. It is also fallacious because of something we call the appeal to authority, or the bandwagon fallacy, in which something is believed to be true simply because several people believe it to be so. I hope I don't have to explain why that's fallacious, why that's such a bad idea. And it doesn't even matter that it's the majority of scientists. Just because a whole bunch of scientists believe it's true, it doesn't suddenly become true. It doesn't matter how many scientists, because something doesn't become true simply because of the number of people who believe in it. Even experts, because authorities can be wrong. A group of authorities together can be wrong, because generally they're drawing from the same source. Consider Piltdown Man back in 1912. In Piltdown, England, they discovered a skeleton of what was supposedly ancient man, and for 4 decades, for over 40 years, this was believed to be the real deal, because it fit the scientific theory of what ancient man would look like. And the reason that most scientists believed this was true was not because of the evidence, because it was not only a forgery, but it was kind of a bad forgery. The skull was stained with iron, chromium, I think. I don't remember. Some sort of acid, and the jawbone was that of a chimpanzee. I mean, it resembled actual things that we could compare it to and say, oh, this isn't ancient man. This is just a compilation of things that are already around. We could have figured that out, but because there was this theory of what ancient man would look like, and Piltdown Man fit that, probably on purpose, somebody said, oh, here's a theory, let's make it based on that. Scientists were misled, and it was the majority of scientists, because they were all drawing from the same theory. While on the other hand, we had things like Java Man, discovered in 1891 on the island of Java in Indonesia, was not accepted as ancient man because it didn't fit the theory. The scientific consensus was that this was just some giant baboon, until many years later, I think in the 1920s, we discovered Peking man, the second Homo erectus, the same kind of species that Java man was. And so it took decades and decades to accept evidence that was good, because of scientific consensus. So it didn't matter what the majority of scientists believe, and there's good reason to think that the majority of scientists can be misled because they're all drawing from the same source. There's also the instance where we thought that vaccines might be related to autism because of Andrew Cartwright's study, and it was reviewed by other scientists and published in a scientific journal, and for a time everybody thought that he had come to the right conclusion until they found out that he had a conflict of interest, and other people decided to run his experiment and found out that it wasn't true. It was accepted for a time because it's went through peer review and it was in a scientific journal. I mean, scientists can be fooled too. They're only human. So you shouldn't believe something just because of the scientific consensus. And here's the second reason why. It's not only fallacious, but if the majority of scientists believe it's true, it's probably because there's good evidence for it to be true. And that would be the evidence that you cite. For instance, below I've given you a link to the Wikipedia page on global warming. I'm sure you could have found that yourself, but it's just a shortcut, just an easy way to get there. You'll see that there's a graph at the top of the page, or rather 3 graphs in a box. And they show the temperatures of the Earth over the last 100 years, and global temperatures, and the rise of fossil fuel CO2 emissions. And there's a correlation between the CO2 and the rising global temperatures, and that is the evidence for global warming. It's good evidence. It's not necessarily the thing. Science is tentative. It doesn't always lead us to necessary conclusions, but it is a good reason to believe that global warming is real. It doesn't matter that the majority of scientists accept that it's real, because they're all looking at this evidence. This is the evidence. This is why you should believe. Does the majority of scientists believe it? Great. How about way back when the majority of scientists weren't on board because they either didn't know or they weren't convinced yet? It was still true. It does not matter that there's a scientific consensus. That is irrelevant. So anyway, feel free to leave your hate comments below, or if you agree and I won you over, that's good too. Feel free to let me know, and I'll see you on the next video. Maybe I'll actually talk about atheism for once. It's been a while. Peace out.